Jeremy Peaches of Fresh Life Organic has been busy growing his organic produce and expanding his company, an agricultural consulting firm.
What is it that we should be planting right now?
Right now we should be, and this is the best time of year, spring, we should be planting tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, all your different herbs, your sages, your cilantro, your basil, different varieties of these things. So this is the best part of the year to grow almost anything.
Yeah. And Houston, it's interesting because people say, oh, it's so hot here, we can't grow anything here. But really, we have a great environment for growing all kinds of things all year round, right?
7 to 8 months a year, we can be able to grow good organic produce. We can even push it to 9 if you're having greenhouses or hoop houses. Most of these things were picked this morning, so it lets you know with our change in weather, our vegetables hold up in this climate.
Yeah, so you like a lot of this stuff here was picked this morning?
Yes, ma'am. It was picked fresh this morning. Some of it came from our family property, our family farm. Most of it also came from Palm Center Farmers Markets in OST South Union area.
Yeah, and there's something about when you have organic fruits and vegetables, the taste you can't deny is so much better.
No. This is so fresh. It's so fragrant.
Joining us is Jeremy Peaches. Welcome back, sir. Now, Jeremy, how has the garden grown since we last spoke? Oh, I think we might have you on mute. We're having some trouble hearing you. Okay. All right. I can
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's perfect. Yeah, my apologies. So right now we have about 3 acres planted of seasonal organic vegetables. Most of the vegetables for spring and summer. And we're blessed. We're flourishing.
Perfect. Now, what new crops have you added, or what new crops are you growing this season?
So what new crops I added, I wouldn't say new, but I would say some different varieties. I've added was okra, purple okra. I added some Louisiana purple pod, green beans, so they're purple green beans. Some different type of squashes for the fall, and I kind of focused on increasing radish production with different niche varieties, and also pickling cucumbers and things of that nature to make value added products.
Okay. And when we had you on previously, you have since interviewed regarding justice for Black farmers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, so yes, ma'am. So I was interviewed by 2 organizations. One, I think it was the local ABC 13 news station, and also the another African American national news network about the Freedom for Black Farmers. It's a Justice Act, an act that hasn't necessarily been passed, but has been proposed in the legislation to be able to provide debt relief in terms of farmers and their land and their loans, as well as some new and beginning farmer programs for specifically African American, or in the USDA terms, socially disadvantaged farmers, which could span across all kind of other races as well.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yes.
With this Justice Act, what does justice look like for Black farmers like you?
Justice for Black farmers like me, I would say it's 2 things. One, I'm a young African American farmer, a new generation. So for me, it means everything, because we have to kind of pick up with the last generation of farmers, or has left off, especially in the time of COVID, of drought, of market disruption, market loss, and then just being a farmer, period. The risks they come with it as well. So I would say these are the things that, as a farmer, we're very resilient, but we're looking at because, it's a very, very pivotal time in terms of policy. Like I just said, this Farmer Act, if you look at the land and the price of land in urban and rural areas, and then, from a historical standpoint, this is 400 years since, America was pretty much established to develop land, to do agriculture from the labor of African Americans. So you're looking at 2-3 generations, of people who've been discredited and basically, has lost out from, our forefathers, from the labor that we had. So, for us, to be honest, is, where are the money, the land, and the resources? But we're not looking for a handout. We're basically looking to be, treated in an equitable sense, that's kind of hard to ask. So, if other races and nationalities are getting, the money or the support that they're getting from the government and from banking institutions to farm, our next generation, we want that same support. And if we can't, we'll continue to do what we're doing now, which is starting to co-op and continue to build our own, through our own networks.
Now, you mentioned the price of land. Is that something
Yes.
that is on the rise?
Yes, yes. And I don't want to give him too much attention, but, Mr. Bill Gates just bought all the land, a lot of land throughout America, one of the richest guys, so they say. So from a, market and economic standpoint, it's a trend of land. But, African Americans, even my family, we've owned a lot of land. We've lost it through the air property system. That's another part of that bill. Which air property is in land that's passed down, and you go through all these hoops with your family members. We've gone through, pretty much limited access to a lot of these things. So, we're at a point to where, the price of land is going up, and, the price of inflation on products, even the farm, is going up and up and up. So if there's no real stability, or if we don't have, access to land to produce our own food, it's an issue. And then when you look at, I'm an urban and a rural farmer. When you look at the urban perspective, growing inside of these cities, the price of land for an acre lot may be $20,000, which is Houston. And then you go to the rural areas, you probably could get land for cheap, but then you need the capital and things to develop this land and to keep it going. And then you need labor. So land is quintessential. And one of the things that we're doing to circumvent that is to use more, I would say, futuristic or non-traditional ways of farming and growing food.
Gotcha. All right. Now, I was doing some digging and on a music video that was put together for Soul Food Vegan. Can you talk to us? Yes. Can you talk to us about Soul Food Vegan and your budding rap career?
Right. So actually, I've been making music for 10 to 12 years. I probably have hundreds of songs. I never released them. I never put them out. To me, it was always a therapeutic thing. But recently, I had the opportunity to film a documentary, and I was just at a space in my life where I was like, hey, I want to start making musically that's culturally relevant to my age, to my group, what we're doing. This whole group of like health enthusiasts, laid back, vegan, biking, all what my generation is. I call us the indigo children. So yeah, I just started making songs about my life. Like I eat at a restaurant in Houston called Soul Food Vegan. The owner is one of my friends of mine. So I made a song about Soul Food Vegan. I pulled up to the tray on the Saturday, ordered barbecue mushroom and moringa steak. So that's eating healthy vegan food, and I made a song about it, about the restaurant. I made a song called Life of a Farmer and Greenhouse. I made a song called Icky about health, And I talk, if you actually listen to the songs too, I talk about us, in our enslavement and a lot of things that we go through. So yeah, check me out on iTunes, Spotify, everything, Hulu, Google me.
Google. All right.
All praise to the Most High.
Yes, sir. You're currently in Texas, and I wanted to ask you real quickly before you go. You're in Texas and you're in 3 other states. When we last spoke, you were talking about expansion. Where do you
Right.
plan to expand to next?
Right now, I'm in Houston. I'm in Oklahoma, Louisiana. Where I plan on this, to me, I would love to be in the DC area, and help connect the rural and the southern farmers as well. I'm out in California right now, to do some things, and land security, because there's so many people that's from all these other places that stay in the South and in these rural towns. But I would say Louisiana. I'm gonna continue to say what I said last time. In Louisiana, we just secured a 5-acre building to do some of the things that we just talked about. So I'm moving full steam ahead with that, and especially we're working with other African American farmers or minority farmers and producers and women, who farm, throughout the South to build, our network and distribute our food,
Perfect. All right. Well, if you don't mind, could you let us know again where you can be reached, either for your music or for your produce?
Yes, so you can reach out to me, Jerry Peaches, at freshlifehtx.com. Again, freshlifehtx.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Fresh Life Organic, Facebook at Fresh Life Organic. Like I said, you could Google me, just see some of the things that we're doing. You can check out my artist name is Fresh Life Germo. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Spotify, Hulu. So, wherever you connect with me on those platforms, or you reach out, send an email at the About section. We'll get back to you and work with you. And I would just love to say I appreciate you all for having me on, and, continue to stay strong and resilient, all my people throughout the world.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us again, and we look forward to having you back again in the future.
Yes. Yes. Hopefully I'll get you out to play some music.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. Coming up, NNV weekly contributor Brian E. Muhammad will be with us for 2 segments for the Global View. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate. Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
As the Israeli-Palestinian conflict escalates, Israel unleashes a devastating offensive on the Palestinians' concerns growing war is on the horizon.
Meanwhile, the UN is warning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could be headed for full-scale war. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is urging staff to stay close to bomb shelters due to the threat of rocket attacks as the State Department tries to de-escalate the situation.
Overnight, the sky igniting with Israeli airstrikes and Hamas rocket fire. As Israeli warplanes howled over Gaza, this salvo of missiles ripping into this 14-story building, drone video flying over the debris fields. Israel said it was targeting Hamas infrastructure, but warned civilians before bombing. Palestinian health officials say over 80 people have been killed, including Hamas operatives, but also dozens of civilians and at least 17 children, nearly 500 wounded. Hamas has launched over 1,600 rockets towards Israel the past few days. Those rockets targeting the Tel Aviv metro area where nearly half of the population lives. A Palestinian rocket hitting this Israeli apartment building. Rescuers scrambling to get people out. Some brought out on stretchers.
Is Brian E. Muhammad. Greetings, Brother Brian.
Greetings, Sister Rosalind.
Yes.
Good to be back.
Good. Your Final Call news article is entitled War on the Horizon. Israel unleashes devastating offensive on Palestinians. Is Israel escalating the conflict by amassing ground troops in this latest offense?
Well, it is. I mean, Israel is doing what Israel has always done. The amassing of ground troops against a defenseless Palestinian people, it tells the story of the lopsidedness of Israel. I mean, they say that they're fighting the resistance group Hamas, who have been shelling rockets really in self-defense, not even in offense, but in self-defense of what Israel has been doing to the occupied population of Palestinians. And so by them putting ground troops along with this bombardment of air raids that have been going on since the 10th of May, it only exacerbates things. And it's only, again, a testimony of what Israel have always done.
Now, the Israeli Defense Force announced in a May 13th tweet that IDF air and ground troops are currently attacking the Gaza Strip. How does the buildup of Israeli troops compare to the 2014 Gaza war that killed an estimated 2,100 Palestinians?
Well, again, it bears witness to the viciousness of the occupied forces of Israel. When we look at the Zionist state of Israel and we look at the situation in Palestine, it is a situation of an occupier versus an occupied people. And so in 2014, when things escalated then, they went all out and was killing like it was no tomorrow. And, and of course, that number is a heavy number, 2,000, and both women and children were in that number of dead. And most of these were civilians. These were not what you call militants. These were not, again, the resistance fighters of Hamas or Islamic Jihad who are over there defending and over there fighting the occupiers of their land. These are mostly civilians. And so this really is comparable because of the day after day, night after night bombardment, even against the demands of the international community that is saying to Israel, you must stop this. And the only ones that are not saying this are the only ones that are bucking against the world demand for a ceasefire even is Israel's main benefactor, which is the United States of America.
Okay. Now, more than 200 people have already been killed, most of them Palestinian, and as you mentioned in the previous one, some of them children. Why has Israel carried out attacks without regard for the innocent victims and essentially the collateral damage?
Well, they, because they really don't give a damn about the Palestinian people. Remember, Israel have been given this land 73 years ago in 1948 by the United States, by Britain, and the other nations that belong to what was then called the League of Nations, which is now the United Nations. Again, as we talked about on this program, the United Nations before, and its lack of ability to deal with these kind of atrocities, one, because much of it was they were a part of it in the beginning, but Israel don't see the Palestinians as people. Israel sees the Palestinians as animals and less than themselves. So when you don't see a fellow human being as a human being, then you will do what people do. If you see them as cockroaches, what do you do with a cockroach? You see a cockroach running across your room, you're not about to have negotiations about how to coexist with it. No, you're gonna either spray it or go step on it.
Right. And
that's what the Israelis are doing to the poor Palestinian people.
Mm-hmm. What parallels I feel like they're obvious, but what parallels do you find between the treatment of the Palestinians in Israel and Black Americans here in the United States?
Well, we are an occupied people as well. Unfortunately, because in the making of a slave and the violation of our humanity, we have been made to be disconnected from the reality of who we are. So we don't see ourselves as a colonized people. Black people see ourselves as Americans who are just in some circumstances, but it's worse than that. So our comparison to the Palestinian people is that we are also a marginalized people. We are a people who are under the act of genocide in many ways, different ways. So we compare very well to the Palestinian people. And that means also that we should also be in support of the Palestinian struggle as they came in support over the last year over the killing of George Floyd, when the rest of the world rose up against what was going on with Black people in this country and the police genocide against us. The Palestinian people was also in that mix. So this is the time for the suffering masses of the world to connect. So we have a similarity that can bring us together.
Okay. Now, Hamas confirmed the Gaza Brigade commander, Bassem Issa, was killed in an Israeli attack. How will Hamas respond to the killing of their leader?
Well, they said that more of their own will willingly die. See, we have to understand that these are people who recognize that it is better to die than to live the life of a slave. It is better. They love death more than people and their oppressors love life. See, the Israelis, these people who have stolen this Palestinian land, who is being backed by the most powerful nation on the earth in this thievery, they are doing all that they can to have a future and to live. The Palestinians are saying, no, we would rather die trying to get our freedom and justice back. They're not even talking about equality, because there is no equality with an occupier. There's no equality with somebody who has been a murderer of your people for 73 years, and it don't seem like there's any kind of let up or desire to change. You don't try to change that reality. You get rid of that reality.
Right.
So, yeah. So the Palestinian people, no, they would rather die. That's what freedom-loving people want. Because what is the worth of life if you have no justice? What is the worth of life if you have no freedom? See? What is the worth of life if your very humanity is subjugated by another people, backed by other people? No. What do we have to lose? We will fight.
Right. Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors, Brother Brian. After the break, we will return to discuss the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline memorializes the late, great DMX. Last week, DMX's life was celebrated at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Large crowds gathered to honor the legend. They were there to remember a man who wasn't afraid to express his pain with the world. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke via Zoom to the large audience. He delivered words of comfort, wisdom, and guidance to everyone under the sound of his voice. DMX will live on. This FCM volume number 29 edition features the middle page article is a transcript of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the memorial. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the nnvnews.com Final Call cover report.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
In the past months, Israel has attacked Palestinian Muslims during the holy month of Ramadan, demolished houses, and evicted Palestinians from their homes.
Israel is the armed thief who has entered our house and is terrorizing our family. It destroys our homes, oppresses our people, generation after generation, decades after decades, and then claims a right to security that it denies us.
Rejoining us is Brother Brian Muhammad.
All right.
Greetings, sir. Israeli police blocked Palestinian Muslims from gathering at the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem's Old City as the holy month of Ramadan began. Israeli police also fired tear gas at the Palestinians who were there at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Did Israel's treatment of the Palestinian Muslims during the holy month of Ramadan escalate the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, it did. It did. I think it added to a number of issues that was already going on. But I think that with the attack at Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest site for Muslims in the world, behind the two holy sites in Mecca and Medina, when they did that, they angered the world, especially during the month of Ramadan, because this was captured on international broadcasting. So the world saw this defilement of the third holiest place of Islam. And the problem is that it exacerbated an already ongoing problem at that site, because at that site is the third holiest site of Islam. Plus, it's a site that's revered by the Jews as well as by Christians. And so that was for a long time kind of like an off-limit kind of place when it came to this ongoing disagreement between the two peoples. And so when I'll put it in this context as well. When President Trump decided that he was going to do what no other president have done before him, even though it was put on their table, but none of them ever signed off on it, which was to move the American embassy to Jerusalem, and then to recognize Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel, which is problematic because Jerusalem is something, again, that's revered by Muslims, Christians, and Jews. So that should not be the undivided capital of any one of them. You know, that has to be a shared space. So when they made that move, it became an arbitrary space for the Jews. And this exacerbated a problem that has been going on, and some other things that's been going on recently as well. As you talked about you didn't talk about it yet, but the eviction of Palestinians from a particular area in East Jerusalem. But it led to this ongoing problem between the people.
Now, speaking of those evictions, why has Israel limited the growth of Palestinian neighborhoods? And why is it that they are evicting Palestinians from their homes?
Well, again, you're dealing with a situation of occupation. It's an occupier versus the occupied. In the United States, when Black people rise up, usually there's a fundamental problem of slave master versus slave relationship. Even in the 21st century, there's slave master versus slave. So the reason why they are evicting, because these settlers want to come in and they want to take the properties of Palestinians and move Jewish settlers into those properties. They don't want to legitimately buy the property, go in and offer the owner money and legitimately buy anything. They take it. And so at the beginning of May, there was a court ruling in Jerusalem where a judge allowed 6 families to be evicted, or rather removed. I don't even want to use the word evicted. They were removed. Backed by the legal system, removed from properties that they lived in for a number of generations now. See? And so when that happened, people began to protest, because that happened to 6 families, but all of the other Palestinian families who were in that area is under the same threat. So they began to protest that. And so this is where the where that problem came in. But the underpinning of all of that in that area, sister, is that being that the Jews want Jerusalem as their own, they're making moves to keep annexing people's land and properties until the Palestinians are pushed out and the Jews will come in. And it exacerbated that problem there, because those Palestinians who lived in that community were there They were other displaced people who were displaced back in 1956 from other areas under this move that the United Nations made to place these European Jews in Palestinian land. So now you got displacement on top of displacement. The Palestinians in that area is saying, hell no, it's not happening to us again. And so, again, they're fighting rather than just laying down on it.
That's right. Now, why do you think Israel has decided to carry out airstrikes at this particular time?
Because they can. Because they can. They know that at the end of the day, the world community is going to pay lip service to the Jewish onslaught of the Palestinian people. Today, it's been reported by the United Nations that they have bombed hospitals, they have bombed schools. And when you bomb hospitals and schools, these are off limit by international law. Yet the Israelis know that they can do this because even if other countries rise up and against that, the United States government will twist the arm of other nations to back them up off of Israel. And this has been a problem.
Seen as crimes against humanity.
I'm sorry, repeat that first part. The sound went out.
Sure. Why is what's going on in Israel and against the against the Palestinians not be seen as crimes against humanity?
Well, it is by freedom-loving people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, they are beginning an investigation that they announced in March against in Israel, really stemming from the atrocities that you talked about in 2014. You see, but now that this situation have jumped off, and look at how many people have died. Look at how many people graves are now under the rubble of stone after the bombing of these buildings there this week, just in the last 10 days. So the International Criminal Court have a lot to look at or look into in terms of possible and what seems to anybody who got eyes apparent war crimes and crimes against humanity, especially just in the last 10 days.
What has taken so long? This conflict has been going on for years. Why do you think it's taken so long for an investigation to not only start, but to be conducted into these crimes against the Palestinian people?
Well, when we look at the International Criminal Court, the court was established by a number of nations. And really, it's about jurisdiction. And Israel, the Zionist state of Israel, is not a signatory to that court, you see. But, which has been an argument that they have been using against any kind of investigation by the World Court to come in and do. But here's the catch. The UN allowed certain resolution that the UN allowed the Palestinians to become a part of the court, even though they're not considered a country or a nation, a government. But they were allowed to come in. So it's under that guise that the International Criminal Court is looking to go into that land and look at atrocities done by these, I don't want to call names, but by the Zionist state of Israel. And the prosecutor who is outgoing because they're getting ready to change prosecutors at that court. She also named some of the Palestinian resistance groups as well, who she wants to investigate because she feels that there may have been war crimes on both sides, which is kind of strange because how could there be a war crime? How can you have a war crime against an occupier? I come into your house, steal your house. 5 years from now, you rise up against me to put me out of your house that I stole from you. And now I'm being charged with a crime?
Right.
I mean, you're being charged with a crime to put me out?
Mm-hmm.
Something is wrong with that picture. But but to answer your question, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Brian, for joining us this week and giving your insight on the Israeli and Palestinian conflict.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Always happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening and tuning into NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.